You may have heard that routine is really beneficial for children with autism. It helps them regulate and it just makes life go a load smoother. But maybe you're thinking, okay, that's fine, Ree, but where do I get started? Fear not, that is exactly what we are discussing today in this episode of the Real Talk with Ree podcast. Hello, welcome. My name's Rihanna Morgan. How are you? Everyone calls me Ree. Thanks so much for joining me here today for this little chat. As I discussed in the last episode, there are so many different areas where you can implement routine with your children, which will just help to automate your life. And if you are a mum like me who also has ADHD, it will help you because ultimately it's taking things off your mental load because it is automating things, because you find something that works and repeat it over and over, and your children are happier because they feel stable and they know what to expect, and you feel happier because you don't have to think quite as much because you do the thinking once and refine the processes and repeat, rinse and repeat, which we all love. However, where do you begin? That's the question, where do you begin? Because as we discussed in the last episode, you can have morning routines, evening routines, mealtime routines, holiday routines, school day routines, just those routines that you can put in place for so many different things. So if you have currently zero routine at all, and you came to me and said, Ree, where do I start? This is what I'd say to you. And if you have a new baby and you want to get them into some sort of routine, it's usually so that they will go to sleep. I think we've all been there where we struggle thinking, oh my goodness, I'm just so tired with this new baby and I need to sort out their routine so that I can sleep some more. And I think as parents of children with autism, sometimes we're in a very similar position, but with far less understanding from the greater population. Children with autism can really struggle with sleep. It can be one of the real challenges. And I still maintain that sleep is not actually where we need to start. The place that I would suggest starting with routine is mealtimes. And this is because if you can get the eating at the right times, then you can move on to getting the sleeping, the routine leading up to the sleeping going well, and then sleeping at the right times, which will then have a knock-on effect for the morning routine. If, however, you were to start the morning routine, but your children aren't going to sleep properly in the evening, and then they're not getting enough sleep, and then maybe that's because they're eating the wrong things at the wrong times, then those two other routines or lack of will have an impact on that morning routine. It will just not be as successful. So while I would definitely say that overhauling everything at once in your child's life is just going to be a recipe for disaster for you, for them, for everybody, picking one place is a far easier strategy, and then tweaking and moving on from there. So if you have zero routine at all, then start with mealtimes. Pick a time that you have dinner and make a routine out of that. So if dinner is at the same time every day, which I understand is not always possible in our very busy lives, especially if you work shifts, if you have children that do 11 billion activities, I understand that this can be challenging. But if generally you can stick to the routine as closely as possible, it's going to go a lot easier. So for us, my children eat dinner wherever possible at 5 o'clock. Our dinner routine is we only eat at the table, so we don't do eating in the lounge and so forth. A few reasons for this. One, it is nice to have that routine of sitting and eating together, and also from a very practical point of view, it's just easier to keep all the mess in one place. If anyone remembers, like if you're a viewer of old, remember back when the children were doing baby-led weaning, and my husband threatened to put a drain in the floor and just, have to wash because it was just so messy. He said it's just like being in a barnyard. But basically, we've just kept with eating at the table, and it really works for so many reasons beyond just being easier to clean up. So our mealtime routine would be we get the children, who now the youngest is 8, to help lay the table. And that is part of the routine. Everyone joining in. And it's like a signal that, okay, we need to lay the table. It's a signal that we're going to be stopping doing one thing and transitioning into doing the next thing. They know what time dinner is. Dinner's always at the same time. And they know what they're going to be eating because I meal plan each weekend, and the meal plan goes up on the wall. So already the children are knowing what time it is. They know which food to expect so that they can prepare themselves then for which sensory delights they're going to be facing. And I know meal times can be huge challenges for so many families. Let me know if you'd like me to do a deep dive on meal times and fuss eaters and things. This is going to just be like a quick overview of where to get started in routine, but I will absolutely do that deep dive conversation about mealtimes and food and difficulties with children with autism surrounding all of that, if that's something of interest. So if you're watching on YouTube, just drop it in the comments, or if you're listening on the audio podcast, head to the YouTube version of the video just by searching Real Talk with Ree podcast on YouTube, and then you can let me know there. Just back to our routine. We lay the table. So often it'll be a case of, right, dinner's at 5, dinner's in half an hour. Like obviously sometimes it'll be like a few minutes out or whatever, depending on what we're making. And so I say, right, dinner's in however many minutes. If you guys can go lay the table, and then you can go and clear up what you're doing. So sometimes I pull them away from what they're doing, and just they have to go and lay the table, and then they can go back and finish up what they're doing. And this method can work. The other method is, just giving them countdowns. This is how long we've got left, this is how long we've got left. But for our children, because they're that little bit older and they understand, sometimes going, okay, just pause what you're doing, let's go lay the table, and then you can go clear up, is sort of a transition in itself, because they're just pausing what's going on. They can go back to it, and then they know dinner's coming up. So they know what they're eating because they can look on the meal planner board, which is in the kitchen. It also helps because everyone knows what to lay the table for. Whether we're going to need certain cutlery, plates on the table, or food that's dished up onto plates, whatever it might be. And then we sit and eat together. We have generally the same food as each other. We've managed to get, over many years of incredibly fussy eaters, we have a set amount of meals that everyone will actually eat without too much variety having to go on. Gone are the days where I'm out having to cook 3 different meals, because those were not fun. Those were not fun at all. It took quite a lot of transition to get from there to where we are now. But yeah, we all generally eat the same food as one another. And we can obviously talk about our days and things, which is nice and very much part of the routine. Sometimes one of the things that we do is we do gratitude practice. We often do this at breakfast and then sometimes at dinner time. And that's just literally going around the table and saying one thing that we're grateful for. It's a nice way to kind of elevate everyone's mood. And the other way that's a really nice way to get the children to talk about their days, and this is again part of our routine, is asking about peaks and pits. So what was your peak and pit of the day? So the peak, the best thing that happened was whatever, and they'll often come up with something really random that they would never say if you just said what happened at school or how was your day. And then the pit is an opportunity for them to open up about anything that was a bit more challenging, and is a nice way to get them to tell you these things that they may not otherwise have mentioned. And then after dinner, everyone helps clear up. So we just take all the dishes over to the dishwasher. The older children can load the dishwasher. So the boys now, our eldest when he's home, and will actually load the dishwasher. The girls are still in primary school, so they help to clear the table. They help to spray and wipe the table, and there's a little vacuum cleaner they can use. And we all muck in and do this together, and it's part of the routine. So if your children are currently not eating at set times or not eating at the same place, then you can just implement one of these things at a time. So you can literally just move to, this is the time we eat, and we always eat at the same time. And then the next step may be, right, we only eat at this table. So maybe it's your breakfast bar, maybe it's your table, wherever your meal place may be. If you can stick to eating at the same place at the same time, you're going to generally find that your children are knowing what to expect, and it feels more regulated and easy for them. So I'm going to briefly touch on some other routine elements that I would do in which order, and then we'll do a deeper dive on each of these routine elements that you can implement in future episodes. So after getting mealtime routines organised, I would then move on to bedtime routines, so that once you've got them eating at set times in a set way, move on to bedtime routines. Bedtime routines I could talk about endlessly, so like I said, we'll just touch on that briefly, but that's what I'd move to next. And then I would move on to morning routines, as in specifically on school days. I mean, it's good to have morning routines anyway, but specifically on school days where you've got to be out at certain times, then I would organise your children's morning routines. They're doing the same thing every morning. And once you've got all that slicked up, I would definitely do what we've been doing probably for the last year in a really structured way, a year or two perhaps, which is doing a weekend reset and having that weekend reset routine, which then helps to support all the other routines and helps to make sure that everyone's got everything they need for the week. And it just takes away stress. It takes away friction. It means that everyone's waking up in the morning feeling refreshed because they've had enough sleep. They've got the stuff that they need for the week because everything's been organised during the weekend routine, and it just flows so much easier, trust me. Hello. Change of outfit because it's editing Ree here, slightly in the future. Just popping on quickly because since I originally recorded this episode, I've been busy creating something really helpful for you. I'm developing a growing library of printable resources called Ree's Routine Resources because I like alliteration. These are going to help you and your children design, build, tweak, and actually stick to routines that are going to work in the real world. These are the exact systems that I use inside my own home to reduce chaos. And if you've heard me talk about this before, I was not born to be an organised person. I was not brought up to be an organised person. When I first became a mother, I was so disorganised, partly because of the ADHD, partly I assume because I had children with additional needs and I didn't know it yet. And partly because just if no one teaches you this stuff and you have to figure it out yourself, it takes a really long time and a lot of unnecessary work. So I've created these printables for you to make life more manageable now and not the way I did it in years and years down the line. So you'll find all of Ree's routine resources inside of my Organised Life Club. What's your Organised Life Club, Ree? I hear you ask. Well, I'm going to tell you. You may have heard me refer to it previously as just my Patreon. Now it's still hosted on Patreon, but we've given the club a bit of a rebrand and I'm so excited for it. Inside the Organised Life Club, you're going to find Ree's routine resources, plus a brand new printable product every month. And you can find these inside of my planner store. Well, those products inside of my planner store, you're going to get one of those every month added as a digital download to your Organised Life Club membership for you to download, print off, use on a tablet as many times as you want for personal use. You're also going to get a wonderful community, exclusive lives and extra content from me, plus early release videos. I'm so excited to welcome you into the club. It's the perfect place for busy, overwhelmed mums, especially those who have a neurodiverse family and just want that extra bit of support. There is a forever free area to get you started, so you can just have a little look around. There is also a mini membership if you only want early release videos and podcast episodes, but the full club really is where it is at. And if you go to mummyof4.com/OLC, I can't wait to hang out with you some more inside the Organised Life Club and to continue developing these resources to help maximize your routine. And as they get developed, they will be put inside the club for you to grab. Anyway, check all of that out when you finished watching/listening to this episode. And for now, back to the show. Now let's talk about how we can implement these different routine elements and some little tips and hacks for making that work well. Timers work so well for children with autism because it just helps them know how much time they have left. There's a really good gadget called a time timer, which is kind of like an egg timer in that you move the dial, so it's like a circle, like an egg timer you turn, but then there is red on the traditional time timers and the amount of time left would go down. So the red would kind of disappear away on the circle, and that's a really good, easy way to visualize time. You can also just use a timer on your phone with the visual numbers ticking along if your children are old enough to understand that. Or what you can do is you can say, I'm not going to say that now because I'll set yours off and be like A word. You know what I mean, don't you? A word, you know what I mean? You can say A word, set a timer for this long, and then you can say to your children, right, okay, when this timer goes off, I'm going to need you to come downstairs. Or when this timer goes off, then it's time to move on to the next transition, whatever that might be. So it's time to start breakfast or end breakfast. For me, I actually use alarms on my phone and it works so well. For my time, we're not supposed to say time blindness now, I don't think, because I think that's sort of not very politically correct for the blind community. So time obliviousness that I suffer from with my ADHD. But my time obliviousness means that with ADHD, you can either end up having to be really early for things because you're clock watching because you're worried about being late, or you're just really, really late for things because you're oblivious to the time. So what I do is set alarms for certain points during the day to notify me and the children that it is time to transition to the next thing. So for example, I obviously have an alarm to get up myself. That's actually on my Apple Watch. I get up early in the morning before everyone else to get some work done, some exercise and things. Then I have an alarm when it's time for me to go back upstairs and get the children organised. The children have their own individual alarms going off at staggered times because we only have one upstairs bathroom. We have one downstairs bathroom, but we have one upstairs bathroom where they clean their teeth. So the children's wake up alarms go off at staggered times, like 10 to 15 minutes apart, and then they know they can go in and use the bathroom because there won't be anyone else in there. So you can utilize your children's own alarms on their own devices, whatever those look like in your household, or traditional alarm clocks, to physically wake them up if that's something they're doing, if they're old enough to use alarms. But then the big one for us is the alarms that notify the children it's time to do the next thing. So we have an alarm where it's time to go down for breakfast. And I'd highly recommend picking upbeat songs rather than just noises or scary like alarm or like alerts. Pick upbeat songs that you and your children like, and they put you in a good mood to help you transition from one thing to another. So one of them would be, it's time to go down for breakfast now. So the children know that they need to get ready for the day, get dressed, or clean the teeth and get dressed. And then I do the girls' hair. And then once they've done all that stuff, they can play, have free time until the alarm goes off. Now, I like the alarm because it means I don't have to clock watch. I like the alarm because the children then know what's going to happen. But I also like the alarm because it's like the alarm is telling everyone, not me. It's not me nagging, it's just the alarm, okay? It's just time. Time is happening, okay? Time's happening. This is not me. I'm not nagging you as such. It's just that the alarm is telling us to do something. The alarm is nagging us all. And it works really, really well for us. So it's like, oh, it's time for that. That's the alarm. That means it's time to do the thing. So then we go downstairs, we have breakfast. We have an end of breakfast alarm. This is largely because when they were smaller, they took such a long time to eat. And to a degree, some of them still do. And the end of breakfast alarm isn't like I am immediately taking away the food in front of you, but it really does give them like we need to hurry up. I often snooze the end of breakfast alarm because I have left a little bit of kind of spare white space before we have to leave. And then when that second snoozed end of breakfast alarm goes on, it's like, right, we really have to clear up now. So the end of breakfast alarm is like that jolt to like, okay, come on, we've had a chat, we've done our gratitude practice and things in the morning, we talked about what we're looking forward to for the day, and then it's time to move on to the next thing. And then I have another alarm going off when it's like shoes and coats, time to go. These timers really help my children. Now, granted, they are a little bit older, so this kind of automation of knowing what's happening is a little bit easier. When your children are very small, they're toddlers or they're in the infants in primary school, obviously they need a lot more, like a very small child is not going to get themselves up and out of bed and go to the toilet when it's time to get up in the morning. But that is definitely something to work towards as your children get a little bit older. For smaller children, the time timer is an absolute must. It's really worked very, very well for mine when they were small. And there are lots of different apps and things. So just search on the App Store for various timer apps, countdown apps, and they're bringing out more all the time. And anything that you can use that's quite visually engaging, then, that's going to work for your children. It's really helpful when we're doing these transitions to use the first then language with children of all ages, especially when they're quite small. So first, we're going to clean our teeth. Then we're going to get dressed. First, we're going to get dressed, then we're going to go downstairs and have breakfast, for example. And visual timetables, I know we've touched on these before, can really help children. If they can't read yet, then the picture versions of the visual timetables can be really, really helpful. You can put them up on the walls, so they know what to expect. For children that are a little bit older, just tick lists can really help so that they can physically go through and say, right, I've done this. These are things I'm expected to do. These are things I need to do to get myself ready. These are the things I need to do, then I can play. That's generally the thing for my children. It's like, when can we go and play? It's like, well, as soon as you have, you've cleaned your teeth, you've got your bag by the front door, you've got your uniform on, you finish your breakfast, you can play. And they know that that's the routine they need to get through, and then they can have free time. And it's nice to work that free time into the routine because it allows for meltdowns, it allows for things going wrong, but also it's an incentive for the children. It's like, look, if I get through my stuff, if I've done all the stuff I need to do before school, I can go and have free time and I can play. You can turn routines into challenges. So the tick lists are a really good example because once they've ticked everything off the list, they can go and do whatever it is that they might want. Maybe if they get through the whole tick list, then there's an incentive or pocket money or whatever at the end of the week. You can do beat the timer challenges. It's like, rather than going like, oh, we've got to do this, but and turning it into a horrible, stodgy thing. Make it a fun thing, make it a race, right? Who can beat the timer? Can we get dressed before the alarm goes off? Turning it into a game and a challenge is just far more fun and far more exciting and engaging than turning it into this awful thing you have to do. Obviously, praise and positive reinforcement goes a long way when you're trying to implement these new routines with your children, because ultimately their current routine, even if it's no routine, that's their current routine, and they're going to need some encouragement, some gentle encouragement to make these positive changes. There may be some resistance from your children at the beginning, because as humans we are naturally wired to want to stay doing the same things, even if it's not especially comfortable, it's not especially working. As humans, our brains are wired for safety and survival. It's like, well, what I'm doing at the moment, I'm surviving, so let's keep doing that. And that's what our brains want to do. So there may be some resistance from your children who, as I said, ultimately their current routine, even if it's no routine, is their normal, it is their routine. So incrementally introducing new things and really positively reinforcing them and introducing them in a positive way. It's like, look, we're going to get to do this, and then we're going to have more free time in the mornings. We're going to start doing these things at set times, and then we're going to have lots more time to play. We're going to start doing these things at set times, and then we're going to be able to have a fun treat on the weekend because we're going to have spare time or whatever it might be. Maybe it's like we're going to have got all through our bedtime routine, and then we're going to have plenty of time to snuggle and have a story. But how you kind of pitch these things to your children, and your tone and your energy as you're introducing them and as you're reinforcing things as they're going well, and like, oh, good job guys, oh, we're doing so well, we're absolutely smashing it out, we're going to get to school in plenty of time, maybe we'll have time to play in the play park before we go in, you know. Lots of positive reinforcement, positive energy, and showing your children the benefits and the upsides of these things working. Because I promise you, the more routine that you can introduce to your children with autism, and probably to your neurotypical children as well. I mean, not having neurotypical children myself, I've got 4 children with autism, but I wouldn't know. But I think most children generally thrive with routine. And I know as a busy mum, even taking the ADHD out of it, there is so much to juggle. The more you lean on routine, the more you kind of lean into it rather than push against it, then the easier it is to just slot more into your busy day and just make your life so much easier. So being consistent is super important. Doing things in the same order, sticking with it even when it feels challenging, but equally being flexible enough that when the morning is going a little wrong, or the evening is changing, or someone's not well, or days where there's a school play or they've got to be somewhere else, having that flexibility and kind of nurturing your children through that is obviously really important. Because in life, yes, it's easier to have routine, but life will always throw you curveballs, and these are things we've got to teach our children too, not just how to set up a routine for themselves that's going to work going into adulthood, but also how to be flexible with changes as they come up. And honestly, the easiest way to nurture your children through these things is by preparing them for changes as much as possible. So by implementing routine wherever you can, but then also notifying them and kind of being like, okay, so normally we do this, but tonight this is going to change for this reason. And giving them that little bit of a heads up will probably mean that you're going to avoid some of those meltdowns. So what does your routine currently look like with your children? Do you find that they thrive on routine, and how do they cope when their routine is disrupted? I'd love it if we could support each other in the comments and share ideas. Now, in the next episode, we are going to deep dive talking about mealtime routines and overcoming some of the hurdles that we can face as parents of children with autism at mealtimes, and how we can perhaps get around some of those. So click on that video or head to YouTube to watch it if you're listening on the audio podcast. Check out my Patreon, join in the little community over there. There is a forever free tier to hang out with me a little bit more, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.